Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Mullany, for envisioning this amazing convening, and thank you, Audrey, for enabling everything. And Frida, I really loved your color font presentation. So my topic today is algorithmic conformity. Why do AI-generated texts and images erode cultural diversity? Many of you presented a problem and a solution to that problem. Mine is more about the problem, so I invite all of you to think about the solution together with me. Here's the agenda for today. I'll explain my research question and followed by a key concept that I call algorithmic conformity, followed by a case study of AI simulated Chinese calligraphy. And then I will share insights from Chinese calligraphy's theory on nonconformity and how that can inform diverse-minded AI. First of all, I would like to present my research question with this pair of images here. I'd like to take a quick poll. So between these two images, one is created by the Impressionist painter, Claude Monet, and one is generated by AI. So raise your hand if you think the left image is created by Monet. Okay, unanimously, everybody thinks that the left image is created by Monet. This is Water Lily done in 1906, and the right side is Dao 3 generated image. So you can see on the surface level, this is a really actually wonderful quasi-impressionistic painting of the hazy water pond scene with water lilies and lily pads. When you look closer, however, these diverse brushwork in Monet's painting are reduced to these fixated forms with well-defined forms of water lilies and lily pads. In Monet's work, however, what you see are these brush strokes with diverse color, diverse directionality interacting with each other on canvas. It's bursting with energy. So what does generative AI do to words and images? In the end, these are going to reshape our worldviews. I present this key concept that I call algorithmic conformity. It refers to the process by which machine learning models generate visual and textual contents by synthesizing patterns derived from averaged data points. This process prioritizes statistical regularities and dominant trends over the nuanced, diverse, and context-specific characteristics of the original contents. So I ground this concept in the German philosophers Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno's critique of the culture industry. Horkheimer and Adorno argued that the technical media enabling mass production of standardized cultural products leads to widespread uniformity, reducing creativity to imitation. They further observed the culture industry has finally posited this imitation as absolute, being nothing other than style. It divulges style's secret, obedience to the social hierarchy. Similarly, generative AI accelerates standardization and uniformity under the guise of democratizing creative tools. This new form of algorithmic conformity emerges as machine learning systems impose uniform patterns on art and literature. To illustrate, I now turn to a case study of AI-generated Chinese calligraphy, which conforms to the rules of machine learning, smoothing out and discounting diverse textures and nuanced meanings inherent in Chinese calligraphy. Algorithmic conformity is exemplified when ChatGPT is prompted to create a calligraphy work in the style of Wang, one of the most accomplished Chinese calligraphers in history. The result shows nonsensical, illegible pseudo-Chinese characters. Even setting aside the inaccuracies in character construction, what we see is an averaged and homogenized representation of calligraphy. The sizes, forms, shapes, gradation of ink, and thickness of brush strokes appear uniform, while the central character shows that AI captured some of the split brush effect by creating space between one's brushstroke. The direction and spacing of each stroke are overly consistent, making the character appear mechanical and inauthentic. Characters in the left and right columns do not vary in size within each column, and the tonality of ink remains nearly identical throughout. So the process of creating this image involves a sequence of internal prompt engineering within ChatGPT. First, ChatGPT interprets the Huang Qingjian calligraphy work that I input, and it generates a descriptive prompt on its own. It says, create a Chinese calligraphy artwork inspired by a fluid and expressive style with free flowing and dynamic brushstrokes. The text should move naturally across the horizontal scroll with varying stroke thickness to reflect spontaneity and artistic freedom. Use a light beige background to emulate aged paper and include subtle and red seal impressions to enhance authenticity. This text prompt is then used by DALL-E to generate the final image. However, this process introduces information loss as critical elements of the original work's nuance are filtered through AI's language and image generation system. The prompt attempts to provide a well-rounded interpretation of Wang Tingjian's calligraphy, addressing aspects such as fluidity and spontaneity. However, the underlying machine learning model designed to average data points characterized as fluid or expressive generate an image simulating only the statistical regularities, the average fluidity. This homogenization erases the diverse forms and techniques in Huang Tingjian's original work, especially those outliers, which are the most unique and expressive. So these flaws stem from the digitization and compression processes of pixelation. Gradations of color, line directionality, and shapes become mere digital approximations. Pixelation reduces the material aspects of art, overlooking rich details like texture and the interactions between water, ink, and paper. So AI also lacks understanding of the cultural and historical significance of calligraphy. The Huang Tingjian's calligraphy transcribes an episode from the 2nd century BC historian Sima Qian's records of the Grand Historian. This story, known as Returning the Jade to Zhao, recounts the diplomatic wisdom of a statesman of the Zhao kingdom, Lin Xiangru. At the time, during the Warring States period, there was power imbalance between the state of Qin and the state of Zhao. The king of the much more powerful Qin kingdom offered to exchange 15 cities for the priceless jade that the king Zhao had. Zhao was much weaker. It did not want to provoke wars by saying no to Qin's request. But if it says yes, Zhao was worried that the king of Qin would not keep the promise of that 15 cities. So the Zhao king asked his statesmen for suggestions. Lin Xiangru presented a strategy and volunteered to become an emissary and negotiate with Qin. So this is the episode that's transcribed in this section of the calligraphy. So for instance, in the section describing the unequal power dynamics between Qin kingdom and Zhao kingdom, Huang Tingjian's calligraphy used elongated rendering of the character He, which captures the tension and gravity of King Zhao's question to Lin Xiangru about this political crisis. The lingering stroke conveys the weight of the dilemma. As Huang transcribes Lin's analysis, the characters grow larger and bolder, reflecting Lin Xiangru's insight and bravery. The character Cheng at the bottom left here, meaning city or territory, is executed with dramatic curves and turns using the flying white technique, emphasizing Lin's reasoning in safeguarding Zhao's state interests. Huang's calligraphic style vividly conveys Lin Xiangru's intellect, composure, and courage when faced with this consequential political crisis. The calligrapher uses these bold, flying white effects by applying a dry brush that would split during writing to mirror the moral strength and integrity of Lin Xiangru. The most visually compelling and intellectually stimulating part of this calligraphy work consists of these outliers, the most expressive characters that are done completely different. from other characters, but these are exactly what's left out in AI's simulated calligraphy. So if AI has issues replicating the diverse brushstroke in the cursive script, will it be able to better simulate a more authentic version of the structured style, for example, standard script? So standard script, 楷书, was balanced and clearly legible characters in distinct individual strokes. It serves as the typeface for most Chinese printed materials today. But when I asked Google Gemini to create a calligraphy work in the style of an input image showing the 16th century calligrapher Wen Zhengmin's Lu Ji's essay on literature, which was written in the standard script, to my surprise, AI generated cursive instead of the standard script. So Google Gemini defined calligraphy as cursive, conforming to an oversimplified notion of calligraphy, ignoring the diversity of Chinese calligraphic styles. So Chinese calligraphy has at least 5 unique scripts: seal script, clerical script, running script, cursive script, and standard script. So this reflects the limitations of machine learning models, but also a lack of annotated training data in AI systems. I conducted a similar test with ChatGPT 4.0 using the same input. Like Gemini, ChatGPT 4.0 failed to generate real characters. But when I asked it to transcribe the text it created, ChatGPT 4.0 claimed its calligraphy is the most popular Tang Dynasty poem, Early Spring, which didn't appear anywhere in the generated image. The AI models attempt to optimize responses by conforming generated outputs to the closest vectors in their machine learning models, even if they don't make sense in context. AI's failure to produce meaningful calligraphy recalls the contemporary artist Xu Bing's seminal work, Book from the Sky. In this installation, Xu Bing meticulously carved over 4,000 movable type printing blocks to create texts that resemble Chinese but are entirely illegible, provoking doubt in established systems of knowledge. AI generates its own book from the sky, creating characters that adhere to algorithmic rules, reducing Chinese calligraphy and language to uniform, contactless, and meaningless forms. So why do AI systems reduce the uniqueness and diversity of brushstrokes, textures, and nuances in artworks and calligraphy? The answer lies in the inherent design of machine learning algorithms. To generalize, AI focuses on statistical regularities rather than preserving fine-grained details. Features like stroke thickness, ink density, and brush directionality are average because the optimization process smooths out outliers to make the model stable. AI models prioritize generalizable patterns that work across prompts, sacrificing the unique features of individual examples. Wang Tingjian, in his calligraphy theory, defined what it means to learn from past masters. He argued that learning does not mean rigidly copying. Huang warned that confined imitation leads to vulgarity. Huang opined that too many calligraphers at his time imitate the master Wang Xizhi's 8 fundamental strokes of the character Yong in a restricted manner. And so this critique directly mirrors how machine learning algorithms operate. It operates by conforming to patterns and regularities in their data sets. By doing that, AI risks producing outputs that lack originality and depth. So Huang Tingjian's calligraphy theory offers a valuable paradigm against algorithmic conformity. The essence of calligraphy lay in originality, uniqueness, and nonconformity, rather than adherence to rules or patterns. So for researchers developing these technologies, insights from Chinese calligraphy remain instructive. Outliers, those rare and unique elements, are not just deviations, but registers of cultural refinement, innovation, and artistic vitality. Thank you very much.